it's a very big deal for any U.S. president to deploy active duty military personnel to do anything domestically. And the reason that's such a big deal is because U.S. law enforcement are trained very differently than the U.S. military.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook. We talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. Mike, we've had these protests in Los Angeles that have degenerated into riots. The National Guard has been deployed. Walk us through the dynamic there.
So, as you mentioned, the president has deployed about 4,000 California National Guardsmen, as well as about 700 active duty Marines who are stationed in California. And so these are two separate decisions that the president and then their secretary made, and both have different legal requirements or technicalities. And so as it relates to the National Guard, the reason the president's decision to call them up was a big deal is because he did it in direct opposition from Governor Newsom. And so the governor of any state is the chief of their state's National Guard. So they have the right to call them up whenever they need. And oftentimes the National Guard does a lot of things in the realm of disaster relief, whether that's hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever it is. They're often the ones who are called in to help with relief efforts. And so it's been more than 50 years, in fact, since a president has gone against a governor's wishes to activate and federalize their National Guard. So the president making this decision is a big deal in that respect, and it's because of their differing opinions of what they're seeing on the ground. When you took from Governor Newsom and Mayor Brest, they say the National Guard isn't necessary to quell the violence and the riots that we've seen, whereas the Trump administration and the Pentagon disagree. And so moving on to the Marines, it's a very big deal for any U.S. president to deploy active duty military personnel to do anything domestically. And the reason that's such a big deal is because U.S. law enforcement are trained very differently than the U.S. military. As the secretary loves to say, they are focused on lethality. We don't necessarily want lethality in our law enforcement. And so they have different training. So the Marines who were called up have undergone additional training over the last couple of days and are only now just getting up to speed and into the field here. And a big part of that is because they're working on tactics regarding crowd control as opposed to as the secretary likes to say, lethality. And so there is a lot of concern and consternation, specifically from Democrats, about the prospects of what that could look like, especially if things go south or if the riots continue. And so we heard from the secretary this week that the National Guard and the Marines will be there for 60 days, and that this whole mission is going to cost more than $130 million. And so there is a real cost and there is a real time period that they'll be here, and a lot is left to be determined on what happens with the riots and whether or not they'll continue.
And when you say the secretary, you mean Defense Secretary Pete
That's
Hegseth,
correct.
who's testified on some of this before Congress.
Yeah, so his testimony is actually coincidental. He was here in Washington testifying in front of several different committees in Congress to talk about the Senate's budget, or the department's budget, but given the fact that this is the first time he's been in front of Congress since he was sworn in as Secretary of Defense, this really was lawmakers' first chance to question him about the budget or current events.
Thank you, Mike. You can read Mike and the rest of our national security team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.